I know myself fairly well. I'm not perfect. As I said before, I make mistakes. I know what I believe. That's a different thing than knowing what I am in terms of somebody else's labels. That I love and respect God, other humans, my family, and my country. Whatever that makes me, that's what I am. That's where I stand. I can stand no other.
What you're about to see is a TV composite of a day I spent with Dan Rather this week. We invited him here simply to learn more about the man who is at the helm of CBS News. We'll talk about his Texas boyhood, the people who mean the most to him, his professional life, and of course the criticism. He gets a lot of that from some influential people here in North Carolina. But the day did not begin here. It began at the airport, and early.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Dan,
Hi, Charlie, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Pleased to be here. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's Terry Belly, who works with us.
Hey, Terry. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Sarge, a great day.
Hi, Bob Mariano.
How do you do, Bob? Good to see you. Talk to you.
Tough one. And when the kids were, both my children were young, we bounced around quite a bit. But we lived in Washington as much as any place else.
Rather's son and daughter are grown now. He and his wife, Jean, live in the city of New York, just about 10 minutes from his work. He usually walks to work. He loves to be outside. He's an avid sports fan and fisherman.
One of the things I like about fishing, on my better days I like it, is it teaches you humility. Television doesn't always teach you humility, but that fishing will do it.
If they put you over the rocks out there, you can always just pull them up as fast as you can. I actually enjoy that better than just trolling. You know, if you troll, the boat catches the fish.
I'm in the Catskills on the Beaver Kill, which is probably the most famous trout stream in America. I'm with the #1 guide, a man named Van Putt. And what he doesn't know about trout, even the trout themselves don't know. For example, he was President Carter's guide when he was up there. I mean, only
He is
the guide. And not to put too fine a point on it, I must have had $3,000 worth of new gear and enough enthusiasm to fill this automobile and 3 more. I saw hundreds of trout, none of them on the end of my hook.
Dan says he jogs through his New York neighborhood and does not feel trapped by his notoriety.
You know, most people are very nice and understanding, as must be your case in Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. People know you well, and most people well-intentioned, and you're glad to see them. Is this your corn, ma'am?
No, sir. But it's good.
Well, it looks good, doesn't it?
How long are you going to be down here?
Well, not long enough, I'm afraid. Maybe not long enough to see the sunshine.
I really, well, I look at him every night, and then I see you sometimes.
Rather seemed to be in his element at the farmer's market in Raleigh. He enjoyed the people, and they surely enjoyed him.
Now, wait, buttermilk biscuits?
Uh-huh.
I don't believe it. Not from scratch.
Well, come on home, Spinner.
All right, here we go. See you later, Charlie. Do you raise this on your own place? Or?
Yes, sir.
I lease, we're tending around 200 acres this year, and we lease all the land except for about 12 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it's family land, uncles, aunts, and my father's place.
Mm-hmm. Now, does the whole family make it on that 200 acres, or is that your part of it?
No, I have to subsidize our farming. My wife teaches, and I'll survey land when I'm not busy with the farming.
You know, I spent one summer as a rod man with a survey crew. I don't even know whether they still have rod men. They may do it some other way now. But we cut a lot of brush to get it where the guy with the transit could see that a bushel of tomatoes. Well, now, you'll have to see my agent, Charlie, over here. He handles all our purchase of tomatoes. Dan, do you eat okra? You bet. You bet. How do you fix it? Well, Jean rather fixes it. Steams.
Fries it or?
Oh, I love it fried. Cut in half and fried. She also makes a pretty good stew, a pretty mean stew, okra stew. Fixes with tomatoes.
Tomatoes in it.
Yeah. tomatoes and onions.
See,
I don't
these
know what else
crops
to
look
say.
good. I mean, they have had some rainy weather, but the crops look good. The vegetables look good.
Hello. How you doing today?
I sure want to see you.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I watch your program all the time.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir. I watch you all the time.
Well, I really do appreciate
I
that.
didn't know.
Dan is taller than I thought he would be, 53 years old in obvious good health. He grew up in a small town in Texas, and I asked him to tell me about those days.
Vietnamese believe in it for curing sore throat.
But I grew up on the very outskirts of Houston in what it's now fashionable to call a tough neighborhood. That I'm not particularly fond of saying, but it was true that most young people in our neighborhood had three choices. They could get killed, go to jail, or go straight. And most young men in our neighborhood aspired to finish high school. In our place and time, that was about as much as anybody could reasonably hope to do. And if you were lucky and good, you might go to work for the fire department or the police department. And that was considered doing very well indeed. And a lot of good friends of mine from the old neighborhood are lifetime firemen or policemen. My father worked, had a job through most of the Depression. He worked with his back and his hands all of his life. He spent a fair amount of his life digging ditches, digging pipeline ditches, oil and gas being part of what moved Texas then and now. Later in life, he became a lineman, climbed to a pole and strung telephone wire. That's the environment out of which I came. Our neighborhood was very sports-oriented. Everybody played everything. Baseball, football, not so much basketball. Being a warm weather climate and being Texas, football and baseball were much bigger sports.
Were you any good? What did you play?
Well, I played at almost everything. Was I any good? No. Did I think I was good? Well, I went through a period where I thought I was good.
In this state, there is among some people a perception that you and or CBS do not cover all sides of a story, particularly from the conservative point of view. And let's, if you will, let's just talk about that for a minute. So how did that happen? How did that get started?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer that as to how it got started in each and every person's heart and mind. Let me back away for a second and say certainly I don't mind talking about it. This is talking about journalism and reporting, and this is my life, my professional life. It's all I've ever wanted to do. It's all I really have done as an adult, and in some ways I'm eager to talk about it. That I was taught that the most important things for a reporter, if you were going to be a journalist worthy of the name, you had to be accurate, you had to be fair, and you had to be independent. That represented the mainstream of American journalism, and it still represents the mainstream of American journalism. That isn't to say that this reporter or any reporter can every hour, every day, in every way, on every story, be dead level accurate, completely fair, nor for that matter in all ways keep his or her independence. But, and I think this is the important thing, Charlie, that you and I both know and recognize, anybody in journalism does, but perhaps we haven't done a good job of explaining, that is the goal. That's what I start out trying to do every day. I make mistakes. We all do. The practice of daily journalism is a humbling experience because you're constantly humbled by, no matter how hard you try, you do make mistakes. But That's the ideal. That's the goal. To be accurate, to be fair, and to fight as hard as you have to keep your independence. Now, from time to time, anybody who stays in journalism and who tries to adhere to that code, to that ideal, you run across people, decent, well-intending, good people who are not in journalism, who what they want you to do is report it their way. I understand that. I think we all understand that. And what we hope, is that they will understand that we can't do that. Now, this applies to Republicans, Democrats, and as Sam Irving used to say, mugwumps as well. Left, right, center, up, down, and sideways. It's in the nature of people. Particularly is it in the nature of Americans. But as a journalist, my job is to be as accurate, be as fair as I can be as independent as is humanly possible on every story, and to say, sir or madam, I understand that you have a point of view and that you would like for me to report only that side. But my job as a journalist is to report all sides. And where we get a lot of criticism, some of it justified and some not so justified, is that when people feel strongly about a cause or a movement, again, whether it's left or right, Republican or Democrat or something else, sometimes they believe that they're dealing in moral absolutes. Again, I understand that and I can respect that. They believe there is only one side, and they want us to report only that one side. While understanding it and respecting it, as a professional, I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. My job as a reporter is to talk to all sides, report all sides. And that's what we do. That's what I do. That's what my professional life is about. That's what I'm dedicated to doing. I don't argue with anyone who watches the broadcast, who watches the CBS Evening News over a fair period of time, leans back and says, well, that may be what Dan Rather and CBS are trying to do, but I don't think that's what they do. If someone does that, I don't have an argument with them. I say, well, you're entitled to express your opinion. Thank God this is the United States of America, and that's what this country's about. Sometimes, however, people don't really watch and listen to what we do. They take somebody else's word for it. And with that, and I hope you'll agree justifiably, I do have some argument. Say, I think you have to watch the broadcast. I'm perfectly prepared to be judged on the basis of my record. I've been a reporter for more than 30 years. It's all I ever wanted to do, and so I started early. Was lucky in that sense. And I have a record. I'm on the air 5 days a week, 5 nights a week, and I am what I am, I do what I do, and it's there for people to see and hear. All I ask, and respectfully ask, is that people make up their own minds, not take somebody else's word for it.
Senator Helms and some of his people have characterized you as a liberal or as a person who is biased, who is on the air, and has sort of put that on the national agenda. He has a national constituency, as you know. I mean, he is elected from the state, but he has supporters financially and philosophically all over the country. How do you deal with something like that?
Well, I'm not sure I know how I deal with it and try to deal to it is certainly he or anybody else is entitled to call me anything. And I've probably over a lifetime been called worse. I know myself fairly well. I'm not perfect. As I said before, I make mistakes. I know what I believe. That's a different thing than knowing what I am in terms of somebody else's labels. That I love and respect God, other humans, my family, and my country. Whatever that makes me, that's what I am. That's where I stand. I can stand no other. That in a big continental country such as ours, with its enormous, and thanks be to God, diversity, not everybody is going to agree about everything all the time. Not Senate votes and not news coverage. And not only am I comfortable with that, but I like it.
You and I were born the same year, therefore, and I grew up in a small town here. Some of my memories of World War II, you and I were about the same age during those years, too young to go to war, but old enough to get an impression of what was going on. One of the things that I remember is sitting on the front porch of our little house there in Bisco on summer nights. And my father was an avid news listener. There was no TV. We listened to the radio. And I heard, as you probably did too, those live broadcasts from Ed Murrell and other correspondents around the world. I was wondering if you had similar impressions of those years. We were at an impressionable age, and that was an unusual time, to say the least, for the country and for everybody in the country.
Well, I think we must share that, and I think a lot of people our age do share that it runs a risk of sounding like some old salt when you remind people that there wasn't any television, and radio was a very big thing. Not everybody in our neighborhood even owned a radio. Most people did, but some people didn't have a radio. And it was not uncommon for people to visit one another and sit around the radio.
You'd actually look at the radio, remember?
Absolutely. When something such, for example, when President Roosevelt would be on the radio with one of his fireside chats, I can remember as if it were yesterday, everybody in the room sitting there and looking at the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly what they were doing as a child, I was not doing this much, was forming a mental picture from what they were hearing on the set. But my father was an avid newspaper reader and an avid listener to radio newscasts. Now, why this was, I don't know. And sometimes when I think of how I wandered into journalism, some might say staggered into journalism, I don't really have an answer for that, but I think part of the reason may be my father's interest in news. He took all three of the local newspapers. We had 3 newspapers. He listened to radio newscasts both in the morning and in the evening. I can remember very well the voices of Ed Murrell, Eric Severide, Howard K. Smith, in the early stages of the war, and even before World War II became the war that it was to become. For example, when Hitler invaded Poland, we listened to the radio. My father and mother, my brother and sister were very young, sat around the radio, and I can remember my father pacing the room. Now, he was many miles from Poland, stuck off way off in Texas, but he knew the significance of what was happening. And he knew that was it. That is, there was going to be a huge world war grow out of this. I can remember the voices of H.V. Kaltenborn, Gabriel Heater. Remember one day vividly when my father, this was during the war, and Gabriel Heater, I don't know whether you got Gabriel Heater here. I bet you did. He was
one of my dad's favorites.
Oh, he was a kind of Walter Cronkite of the radio, was my recollection.
Had a very distinctive voice.
Exactly, and a distinctive style, and that was part of this story. Gabriel Heater came on, I know we listened, we had some country music singer on, and my father said, cut off that Floyd Tillman music, let's listened to Gabriel Heater. We switched over, and it was during the North Africa campaign, and things were not going well for the Allies. And Gabriel Heater came on as only Gabriel Heater could and said, "The Desert Fox is only 10 miles from Cairo." Well, to my shock and amazement, my father jumped up, went over and got the radio, picked it up, jerked it out of the side, and threw it up against the wall. And my father was not a violent person at all, could not have been more astonished if a three-legged giraffe had come loping through our living room. And she quickly admonished my father and sent my brother, sister, and myself off to the bedroom, and I could hear her admonishing my father, and he was apologizing for it. Fortunately, the radio was not broken, however, and he plugged the radio back in. But it was just his frustration at the fact that the Germans were doing well. The only point of the story is that radio was a central part of the home. Family life, community life were much more accentuated then than they are in many places today. The radio was a central part of the home. It was your lifeline for information to the outside. And those mental images of Hitler's tanks rolling into Poland and the Desert Fox only 10 miles from Cairo became very vivid indeed. Too vivid for my father on this particular day.
While Dan had been to North Carolina many times before this week, he had not been here recently. So I took the opportunity to demonstrate the diversity of people who make up our area, from those at the farmers market to those at the Research Triangle Park.
While a lot of people don't realize, if they haven't had an opportunity to travel through here, what's going on over here in the woods, and it really is phenomenal. The state is competing really with Silicon Valley in California for this industry.
This industry being what?
Microelectronics.
Microelectronics.
Who were the people besides your parents who was the person who influenced you most as a youngster besides your parents?
Well, as a very young boy, there was a young woman who taught reading and love of books at the local park in our neighborhood during the summers, who was very influential. She introduced me to the library, took me once downtown to the library, which was a very big deal. We had 3 bus transfers, and it took about a half a day to get downtown, and 3 bus transfers back. But she was a very important influence. Mrs. Simmons, who was our elementary school principal, very important, influential person to me. Loving, caring teacher, but trucked nothing less than your best. Very influential. The folks at the 14th Street Baptist Church were very influential. George Hoyt, our kid, lived across the street from me. I remember very, very early on, the good folks at the 14th Street Baptist Church trying to teach us about the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And the second George Hoyt heard anything about ghosts, he said, "Wait a minute, what's this about this ghost?" And the Sunday school teacher tried to explain to Georgie, well, you know, ghost is something you can't see. And George said, "Well, is he in here?" And the teacher said, "Yes." George said, "Well, I'm leaving." But all of those people contributed mightily. It's all under the heading of nobody makes it through by himself.